All right, so we're diving into some pretty heavy stuff today. The aftermath of Typhoon Yagi, and this wasn't just, your average storm.
Right.
This was a monster. I mean, we're talking like record-breaking Asia's strongest storm this year,
Absolutely.
and the death toll is it's still climbing, unfortunately.
Well, tragic.
Across multiple countries. But we're not just here to kind of rehash the headlines, right? We
Right.
want to like really dig into what this typhoon, what it says about the planet, honestly,
Yeah.
about the future, what it, how it connects to the bigger picture.
Well, I think Typhoon Yagi gives us, unfortunately, a really, really clear lens. It's like this perfect, terrible example of how climate change is already impacting us.
Right.
And it's not impacting every nation equally, is it?
No, definitely not. And it's easy to get, like, you read the news, you see the numbers,
Yeah.
and they're huge, they're impactful. But, I think what really stuck with me, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners, is that video out of Vietnam, the bridge, that steel bridge
Oh, yeah, yeah.
over the Red River, I believe,
Right.
just like gone.
Fold it up.
People driving along, and suddenly there's nothing.
Yeah.
It's just like that's the power of this storm. Yeah,
It's those are the moments, right, that cut through all of the noise and all of the data. You see something like that, and it really drives home, the force of what we're talking about here.
And then it's like, okay, it's not just a bridge, right?
Exactly.
We're talking about entire villages,
Yeah.
underwater in highland farmland, wiped out Vietnam. Like, these are people's lives.
This is their livelihood, generations maybe, of farmers who, this is how they support their families, their communities.
And it makes you think, were these places ready for a storm of this magnitude?
Right.
Like, did they have the infrastructure, the warning systems? And then what happens after the floodwaters recede, right? Like,
Yeah.
who's helping them rebuild? If they even can rebuild, it's a lot to process.
It is, and it gets even more complex when we bring climate change into the conversation.
Exactly. And one of the things I was reading, they were talking about how, warmer ocean temperatures, they're basically saying it's like rocket fuel for these storms.
Yes.
They make them more powerful, they make them more intense.
And they intensify faster?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which gives less time to prepare.
Absolutely.
So it's not just bad luck that Yagi became so destructive, right? Like how much worse did climate change make this particular storm?
Yeah. It's the question, right? It's a really important one. And the science it is actually pretty clear on this point. The warmer the ocean is, the more energy is available for these storms.
Okay. Yep.
Right. And this has been something that, scientists have been talking about for decades now, and we're seeing it play out, more and more often.
And it seems like, I mean, it's almost like a cruel irony, right? That the people who contributed the least to this problem, they're the ones facing, the worst consequences.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a term for that, actually. It's called climate injustice, and it's something that, we talk a lot about in the field because, yeah, it's the poorest countries, it's the most vulnerable populations that are often on the front lines of climate change.
It's tough. And it kind of makes you wonder how, with something so complex, right?
Yeah.
How do we get that message out there in a way that, that makes people act?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
How do you balance reporting on these immediate disasters, these really heartbreaking situations, with this longer-term threat, which can sometimes feel abstract, Like, how do we make climate change feel as urgent as it is?
Right.
Because it is happening now. It's not something that's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
It's here. And I think, part of that is telling these stories.
Right, yeah.
It's connecting with people on a human level, making them realize that this isn't just about melting glaciers and rising sea levels.
Right.
It's about people's lives. It's
Yeah.
about their homes, their livelihoods, their cultures.
And their future, really.
And their futures, absolutely.
Because if this is a sign of things to come, it's a little scary.
It's incredibly concerning. And I think the big question is, what are we going to do about it? And, that's for all of us to ask ourselves.
Right.
What choices are we making in our own lives? How are we holding our leaders accountable?
Yeah.
These are the questions that I hope everyone listening will continue to ponder long after this is over.
Absolutely.